With the Bank of Canada deciding to cut the key lending rate by 25 basis points, that means the rate is now at 2.5%. The cut was largely expected after inflation data from Stats Canada showed consumer prices rose by 1.9% in August year over year. In its September interest rate announcement, the central bank reduced its target for the overnight rate by 25 basis points, which now sits at 2.5%, 2.5%. Bank of Canada says that global economic growth is showing signs of slowing amid higher U.S. tariffs and ongoing uncertainty.
After remaining resilient to sharply higher U.S. tariffs, global growth is now showing signs of slowing. U.S. consumers are cautious and employment gains have slowed. U.S. inflation has picked up in recent months as businesses appear to be passing on some tariff costs to consumer prices.
All right, joining me now is Claire Fan, economist at the Royal Bank of Canada. Claire, thanks so much for joining us. A whole lot of uncertainty, job losses adding up, weakness in the economy, so a lot of grim numbers that might make your head spin. So boil this down for the average Canadian. What's behind the decision and what it means for most of us?
Right. So the decision to reduce the overnight rate today by 25 basis points to 2.5% is really mostly stemming from two things. Number one is, like you said, the economy has weakened. And that's largely a new development, really, over the past 2 months since the last meeting in July when the Bank of Canada actually opted for a hold. We've seen softening in labor market. We've also seen a huge hit to Canadian export to the United States because of the tariffs that's been sort of imposed on a small set of Canadian products. And then the second factor really is just the softening in inflation over the summer, which has been really encouraging. And that has been sort of the final push, really, to get the Bank of Canada or the Governing Council to opt for the rate cut today.
Yeah, so that gets us to where we are today. The bank remaining, however, cautious about its future outlook, as we heard from Tiff Macklem, focusing on a shorter horizon. Are you anticipating another cut in October now?
Right. So if you were to look at historical precedents, what had happened in the past is when the Bank of Canada does initiate or restart a cutting or a hiking cycle, rarely did it stop after just making one move. But then, of course, these are very unusual time as well. So the amount of flexibility that's allowed for in the future rate path is enormously high. And that's really just to continue to allow for changes in economic data to kind of shape and influence their decision. Because really, frankly, 2 months ago, the economic data really wasn't as soft as where it is today. So it's already kind of shown in the decision today and will continue to play a role in future decisions as well.
So as I mentioned, there are a lot of grim numbers out there when trying to define the economy, and we've seen 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Are we then technically in a recession, on the brink of a recession? What's your read?
Right. So the second quarter decline in GDP was, again, mainly due to a huge hit to export. And then you look at some of the other components, including how much households were spending in the second quarter. That was actually an upside surprise and a bright spot in sort of the GDP component. Early data in the third quarter is pointing to some resilience still. So I would say that, what we're seeing right now is that the hit from tariffs to the Canadian economy has been very pronounced, but also very concentrated and concentrated in both in terms of the regional and sectoral split as well. And if that were to remain the case going forward, hopefully the bulk of the hit from tariffs is already behind us.
Claire Fan is an economist at the Royal Bank of Canada. Claire, greatly appreciate your time breaking it all down for us.
Thanks for having me.